Hey, good afternoon, everybody. The Afternoon Gridiron. Thank you for tuning in, first of all. Steve Walls, the W Show 100.1 FM. Darren Smith, the Ship, 810 WHB Sports Radio. Darren, man, you weren't really that excited about the post-practice press conference today.
Well, wasn't that I wasn't really excited. I just didn't really, the question that I had was really only for Chris Jones, but it wasn't really Chiefs related. It was about obviously the shooting that took place last night in Wisconsin. Wanted to get his thoughts on that, but I just didn't think at the moment or at the time that was the place for it. But be quite honest, I mean, the lineup that we had Steve Spagnuolo, Chris Jones, Daniel Sorensen, and Jody Foster. It just didn't really jump out. We'll have Frank Clark, I believe, on Wednesday, so I'll probably, we'll talk more, probably have a question or two for him. But no, I mean, with Spags, pretty much my stuff would have been related to the defense, but I got that question answered from, I think from Patrick yesterday or from Andy. So I really didn't have much to add. I just want to sit back and listen to the type of questions that we're going to be asked, and as usual, they either steal one of our questions or they come up with some dumbass questions, but, to each his own.
Yeah, there were some questions to Spags, one being about Bashaud Breeland. How would they function without Breeland missing the first 4 games of the season, of course, due to his suspension. But he said that it's what we already know. He was very vague, in his answer to that question. But, it's as far as attacking it for the first time is what he said, attacking the first game and then kind of going from there, finding the right person to replace him. We already know that that's what they need to do. But he said that they're going to try a combo of guys. Who those guys are, really don't know yet, of course, because when you think about, them missing Bashaud Breeland, also Juan Thornhill, but Tyrann Mathieu can possibly, he's kind of that rover type, so he's able to kind of match up on the best player.
Yeah, that was one thing I talked about on the show yesterday. If they were to bring someone like Earl Thomas in, we know they're not. But the thing that I took away from when he talked about Breeland and his absence is that, you kind of look at it as a player being injured, and of course, it's the next man up. He said the advantage that you already know that you're going to be 4 games without Bashaud Breeland, so you can do the planning ahead of time, plugging people into his position, and see how that works out prior to week number 1, and then you can kind of adjust if need be for the following 3 weeks. So that's the biggest advantage that he says that they have. For knowing ahead of time about Bashaud Breeland's suspension. So I think that actually works in their favor to where, it's not like he blows something out first play of the game, and then you kind of figure out what you're going to do then because you expect him to be starting, but at least he's going to be out the first month of the season. So you can already plan ahead for that.
And right now, and when you look at the depth chart, they have Antonio Hamilton, who was the unrestricted free agent that they brought in from the Giants.
Yep.
So at least there's a veteran that you're able to slide over there and kind of fill the void, if so to speak, right as of right now.
Yeah, no, I like that. And one of the other players that he talked about was Jahnier Sneed. I know, we've had questions about that. He said that, he has a long way to go at cornerback, and one of the best advice that he's given him is to do everything. And we talked about it before. Whatever you do it fast. And he's telling him to do it even faster. So, by doing it faster, you can kind of cover up mistakes, so to speak. Plus, it also shows that you're working hard. And then I think another takeaway, he was asked about fans. I think someone asked him about Buffalo or Miami being allowed to have 13,000 fans in, and he said that really, and that's what caught my attention. He said the advantage is only that it only benefits really the quarterback, because he said that when they have obviously fans there at Arrowhead, that the other quarterback goes on a silent count, so that kind of really helps the defense more or less. But he said that there's really no advantage or disadvantage for the defense by having few number of fans there at the games.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention that because, with Patrick Mahomes, is that something that he's going to be working on is without fans being there at some of the stadiums, what kind of cadences? He's working on a different type of cadence, to draw teams off sides.
Yeah, and that was a good point that he brought up as well. Again, it kind of goes into your question, I think, Steve, that you asked about the run pass stuff that they would do. Whether or not they get a chance to work on, or if they confer about the type of plays that one side is going to run versus the next, and because that would have been a good part to follow up with as it relates to the silent count and what they work on. But from what I gathered, he said that as a defense that they kind of work on things with the scout team. He said Andy them, they really just run their base offense and defense, or their base offense, and then the defense runs their base, and then it's basically doesn't matter if it's run or pass, the defense has to adjust depending on the formation out there. So.
And and then part of his answer to that was, no excuses.
Yeah.
We play how we gonna play. They play how they're gonna play, and the no excuses. And Chris Jones kind of touched on it a little bit too, with as far as stopping the run. Of course, they work on it with scout team, and that's how they get better. But they're all veterans. They've all played the game of football. Football is football.
Yeah. I would have asked Chris Jones along with Steve, but it kind of would have gotten redundant about the expectations being having a year underneath their belt in his system, and obviously we saw how they improved once everybody came back healthy, for them to come back and win the Super Bowl. And my question would have been obviously the expectation. What do you expect from week number one with everyone who's now a year into their system? I probably should have asked that, but I was expecting probably the same general answer that we've gotten from other defensive players. Chris Jones, look, he's he's someone that fans can relate to, that they get hype off of, and he feeds off the energy from the fans. I do believe though that having fans in the stadium, even if it's as few as 17,000, helps the defense out a lot. Because I think they more so than the offense feed off the energy that the crowd gives them on defense, especially when they can get loud on third and long or whatever. If they can kind of cause a disruption for the quarterback, they're able to go out there and where the quarterback can't hear they can't hear what's going on, and then the defense can make the big plays. I think it's something that he's very much excited about with the addition of having fans at the games.
But something to think about though is kind of like what the NBA is doing. They're pumping fake crowd noise, boos to benefit the home team, so to speak. Will the NFL allow other stadiums to be, home teams to be able to pump fake crowd noise in?
I think they're allowing that. I know for the television broadcast they're talking about even virtual fans, but I do believe that obviously it's working for Major League Baseball. And look, to the NBA's credit, Steve, I got to tell you, I was watching I know you were as well, the Clippers Mavericks game on yesterday, and you could, it really felt like just a real game with the crowd noise, and I don't know if they get it from the NBA 2K stuff, the sound effects, but it literally matches the atmosphere that you see going on, and so I could see that happening. Now, it is a difference because when I'm at the Royals game, hearing the music or the crowd noise being pumped in an empty 40,000 seat stadium versus 80,000, that's going to be open air and stuff like that. So it is going to be a challenge. It is going to be loud. Now, the Atlanta Falcons, they have an advantage because they've done it before.
Right.
They've pumped it, and so. But we'll see. We'll see. I do like the idea, and I do like the fact that they would have crowd noise being pumped in. So depending on how it comes across and how loud it's going to be, I think it also favors the home team, especially the defense.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, but it's how much of that is actually the players are able to hear. How much of it is going into the stadium though? Because of course we hear it, on the television screen or however you watch the games, but how much of it is actually what the players hear? Because
it's well,
because you think about it on a broadcast when you're watching, let's just say an NFL game, you don't really hear the outside noise, only a little bit, But on the NBA game, you hear everything. Like you hear the shoes squeaking because they're right there. You know, get what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I have not been able to. I mean, we see the game in the monitors, in the press box, and you can hear, and I'm talking about for the Royals, you can hear, the crowd and stuff like that. But I have not. I will admit, I have not watched either on my tablet or with audio to see how that comes across. I'm just saying from a live person point of view, being at the baseball game set. I do know that the crowd pumping does work, and obviously what we see on television for basketball. So, baseball, I probably do need to, I'll probably catch a Royals game on television just to give a better analysis on that, how it would come across.
All right, Chris Jones actually talked to us as well. Had a chance to ask Chris Jones about, Patrick's, with two questions about Patrick's ability to extend plays and how does it help the defense from a conditioning standpoint. And also, there have been some talk around the league about the D lineman and O lineman wearing some special face masks to kind of block COVID. So to just block the virus to be able to go across the face mask. But he said it's something that he's open to.
Well, yeah, I mean that the NFL and the Players Association, I believe that they had already approved it. I don't know if I would have asked whether or not they've been using the mask more or less versus whether or not he would use it. But that is something that he's obviously very open and receptive to, and he didn't have a problem with it, because if the NFL Players Association approves it, then that's what they're gonna utilize it. Now, I don't know whether or not they have the option to use it or to go forward with it, but I know it's something that they're really hoping that the quarterbacks use more or less, because obviously they're going to be doing most of the talking and stuff like that. But of course, offensive, defensive linemen, they're going to be, in the trenches with one another. So I would say, I mean, if I'm Chris Jones, he didn't have a problem using it. So I would imagine that if it is something that that is something that actually, that's a good question. I think I'll try to see if we can get that to Andy Reid on Wednesday, whether or not, they've utilized those new face mask type guards or whatever for the players. So that is something I think that we should try to follow up with.
Because the reason I asked that as well is because I saw J.J. Watt talking about it.
Right.
He said that it's something that he will not do. He's not open to it. So, I mean, so I just wanted to find out from one of the players.
Because I did remember JJ saying that he thought, one, it didn't look right. I mean, but I'm like, okay, appearance is one thing, but he said it didn't feel right. And I don't know. I mean, and I don't know if it's a matter of because it guards that or it goes below the actual face mask somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you're down, and depending on how your stance is, whatever it is, that could have an effect on you. So, I mean, I can understand this point of view as well. So that's something, again, I think that we probably follow up with Coach with on Wednesday.
Had a chance to talk to Dirty Dan today, and he talked about just coming back from last year. Coming back and went after winning the Super Bowl, and now started a new season off fresh. What was your takeaway from that? Because he said that last year was a good time, but now it's new season.
Well, it's funny because, of course, they asked one of our questions, because my question to Dan was going to be about that play that he snuffed out, the fourth down punt with Houston that he snuffed out. And look, I'm one of someone, kind of like, I have yet, and I don't know about you, I have yet to actually watch the TV broadcast of the Super Bowl. So I still, maybe I just have to go on YouTube one day, find 3 hours and just watch the Super Bowl, because I have yet to watch, the entire Super Bowl again. But, if I'm Dirty Dan Sorensen, I'm kind of rewatching, rewinding that specific play more and more again, because literally he is the catalyst for the team going on that run. I think they were already down 24-0, and if he doesn't stuff that fourth down play out,
big punt,
I mean, Kansas City could we might not have been having a situation, this conversation that we're having right now. And so no, what I most got from him was his humility and the fact that was in the past, and that he, like the rest of the others, they love the idea of winning a Super Bowl, but that's not enough for him. One is not enough.
I agree. And here's the thing. Here's the thing about Dan Sorensen. You really can't tell his emotion because everything is always.
Oh yeah, that's
everything is just so straightforward, and you don't know. But today he seemed more loose, than previous years that we've been able to talk to him.
Yeah, I mean, and as Brian said, yeah, that tackle was epic, but well, one, he doesn't really talk to the media much. I know, when they get a chance, they do, but I mean, you're talking about something that led to the team's success and win the Super Bowl. So now you got something to kind of build off of and go off of. And so, I mean, if you can't show emotion off of that type of stuff, then you're never going to get any emotion out of Sorensen.
That's right. Also, another person we talked to was Jody Fortson.
Jody,
he's one of those guys, man. We said this off air, but kind of compare him to, if there's another guy on the team to compare him to, I would say it's DeMarcus Robinson.
Yeah,
being a tall, lanky guy, but the difference between he and DeMarcus is DeMarcus has a little bit more playing time and some success, with playing with Patrick, and also he's faster. And Jody, of course, you guys don't know, he came from a Division II program, and we talked about that as well off camera, Darren.
Yeah. Look, I was big on Jody last year because I thought to myself, man, the kid is 6'6". I'm like, one, you can't teach height in the NFL. And if he had any semblance of speed, so to speak, or, his hands, if he had good hands like a Chris Carter, to me, I felt that he would make the team. I didn't think, I thought he would at least be more than a practice squad player. Because again, you can't teach height and you're 6'6", but he had some learning growth that he had to do. I like the potential that he has. The only thing that I had an issue with, I think, questioning was, the point out the fact that you came from D2 to the NFL, like that's supposed to be some dreaded learning curve, or like I mean, I don't like the idea that you say something like that and you make it seem like the kid was dumb or whatever, and then he kind of fed into where no, I mean, you just had to go ahead and, I mean, okay, it took you a little bit longer, so what? But you picked it up along the way, and now you've learned from it, and you've gotten the advice of the players and your teammates, both offense and defense. Use that to make it better, but don't feed into the fact that because you came from a small college or a D2 college that, that you're slow, because that's not the case. I mean, you just, because, Clyde is coming in, as a first round draft pick in a D1 school, but he's getting fed all that and he's getting the reps for it as well. If situations happen to where you were fed like that, I mean, I think you can make a big impact as well. But all that being said, I believe that, again, if he gets an opportunity to not only, not just make the practice squad, but actually make the 53-man roster, I think that he could be a value asset to this team, especially we know that the wide receivers won't stay healthy throughout the season.
Exactly. And another thing that kind of caught my eye and is when he was asked about modeling his game after Randy Moss.
Exactly.
Of course, he fits the bill of Randy. However,
I thought that last year as well.
The question is, why does he, and I know you didn't, he kind of frowned on that, but the question was, why does he model his game after Randy? Well, go ahead.
He's a freaking Hall of Famer. I mean, if why would you not model yourself after Randy Moss? Look, the question should have been more so, seeing that you're 6'6" and you got height and speed, do you fashion yourself after Randy Moss? And if so, how would you fashion yourself after him? Not just why, like, I mean, seriously, you're a Hall of Famer. Like, I mean, who am I supposed to fashion myself off of? Antonio Brown? He's 5'8".
Right.
It again, some of the questions that they ask, you just kind of shudder. And now, perhaps if it's me, the question that I would ask, if not Randy Moss, maybe a Julio Jones. I know Julio or even Megatron. I mean, maybe he needs to put more weight on and muscle and stuff like that. Now, that's something that between year one and year two, I probably would have done. Depending on, I don't know, I don't have the roster in front of me to see what his weight is, but perhaps, with that 6'6" frame, you add on some muscle to go along with your hands and your athleticism, and then you become a 6'6" freak. I mean, monster to where you can't be stopped on the field. Now that's something that I would have geared a question or comment towards. The improvement.
He's 230.
Oh. 6'6", yeah, because obviously, see, Steve said that he joked with him about playing on the D line, 6'6", 230. Then, to be honest, bruh ain't got no business being on the practice squad. He needs to be on that 53-man roster, putting some hurt on somebody, especially when most of the teams in the NFL, including our team, they don't have a defensive back taller than 6'1", maybe 6'2" at the most. So, I mean, if he's 6'6", 230, there's no reason why he's not abusing our defensive backs along with other defensive backs in the NFL. I mean, I would be using that to my advantage versus disadvantage. But
and he also talked about just what you said, being able to catch the ball over people. And he said he wore number 7 in college and in high school because of Tyrann Mathieu. He said Tyrann Mathieu is the best defender that he's ever seen. And today, during practice, he caught a one-handed catch over Tyrann Mathieu. And Tyrann, he talked about Tyrann tweeting about it and making it public that he was able to do that.
I mean, no offense to Tyrann, but Steve, I think you like 6'3", 6'4". You should be able to catch a pass if you jump up, put the ball at his highest peak over Tyrann Mathieu. So, I mean, and that's no disrespect to him. It's just, I mean, he should. I mean, you 6'6". I mean, you throw the ball to Randy Moss, he was 6'5". You throw it at his highest point. Nobody can out jump him because he had a 40+ inch vertical. So, I mean, that's just genetics to where, it shouldn't be. I mean, it really shouldn't be a discussion. That should be something that's all day. I mean, if he, if he were, again, with the way that the receivers are kind of dropping more or less with, tissue issues or whatever like that, for him, if he gets his opportunity, then that's something that he needs to be doing, and he needs to utilize his height if he wants to see that football field.
Exactly. And I think Patrick understands that. And Jody said, it feels like any ball that's in the air, he can go and get no matter who is guarding him. And so if you got somebody that's like that, throw it up. I mean, and he has the body type to be able to throw it across the middle and throw it up and let him go get it.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what his 40 speed is, or he's probably a 4.5, maybe 4.56 or something like that. Yeah, again, but see, Jerry Rice wasn't the fastest either, but he ran. See, the difference between that, he was perfect on his route running ability, and he knew where to get the ball, knew how to catch it at his best or at his highest point. And so if he can kind of model some consistency like that, then I think the sky's the limit for him. And really because you got him for cheap anyway. I mean, I would definitely be utilizing his talents a lot.
He said in his 40 time was a 4.7. That's his lowest time.
That's his lowest time or his fastest time?
That's his lowest time.
Yeah.
4.74.
Okay.
So I mean, that could be something too. If you out there running slow as molasses, then of course you're not going to see the field.
But hell, put him on, but make him a tight end.
Right, and I think that's why a lot of teams wanted to make him a tight end because he's not that fast.
Yeah, well,
so
yeah. And I know Byron talked about picking up Thaddeus Moss as a project, which, I mean, LSU won a national title, son of the great Randy Moss, Hall of Famer. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
I wouldn't either. I mean, but when you think about Nick Keiser, a guy that's been developing, that you've developed in your system, I mean, you know who you're going to have as far as he's been running with the ones behind. So is that somebody that you're willing to give up someone else for?
I mean, well, one, you get him for cheap. I mean, he played in the national championship game with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so it's not like he hadn't played in a pro style offense. So, I mean, it could just be more so the terminology. If he can get that down pat and get some reps, and look, I'm not saying he's gonna come in and start or anything like that. I mean, and you could always have a third tight end, which depending on who you decide to keep. I'm just putting the point out there. That's what Brian put out there. We're picking him up as a project, which again I wouldn't have a problem with that because he would come cheap anyway.
Again, we appreciate everybody that tunes in to the Afternoon Gridiron with Steve Walls and Darren Smith tomorrow in the 1 o'clock hour. Remember, the Chiefs are off tomorrow, but we have the opportunity to have Dr. Alan Seals, who's the Chief Medical Officer for the NFL. We'll have him on our live feed. So we'll come on here and talk after Dr. Alan Seals talks, and we'll let you know our thoughts regarding what he had to say. So again, this is the Afternoon Gridiron with Steve Walls and Darren Smith. Until tomorrow, guys, we are out of here.